Welcome back to Fort Apache, a Halo 3 multiplayer map created by Dutch Bedlift. You may download this map in the description below. The Halo sniper rifle is a legendary firearm. It has to be there in every Halo. No debate, no negotiations, gotta have it. Practice with it and you can thread the needle, splatter the Covenant Blueberry Cobbler brain. In Halo 3 Mythic Overhaul by Mythic Jakui, you can dismember enemies, crack open craniums, and behead grunts. Practice some more sniping at Fort Apache, jump back into the campaign and snipe more grunts, or watch a brute take it to the face. There's a lot of neat experiences you can have with the Halo sniper rifle. So I decided to team back up with Instructor Laspina, head of Spear Training Group, to see what he would change on the sniper rifle. Will it be a lot or very little? What if you took it out to the field right now, as an average person, not a Spartan? It seems like you all like these kind of videos, so let's continue. The reason I choose Instructor Laspina is because he likes doing this, and I trust the guy. When it comes to finding ways to make weapons more practical, I trust someone with years of firearms experience and administers shoot, move, and communicate scenarios with people on the range, and has fun with it, as opposed to someone like this. Well, we all have our unique skills and interests. We're all here to have a good time. Instructor Laspina made some changes after researching and experimenting with the sniper rifle in virtual reality to get a better feel for the weapon. Let's dive further.
Hello and welcome back yet again. I want to thank KYOT, Coyote, and his awesome community for having this opportunity. This is something I just thoroughly enjoy doing, and I think it's a fun time to look at. So first things I want to start off with, thank you for all the input and the comments from the last few videos. I've been brought up to date on a lot of technology in this universe, and it has helped mold some of the blasphemy that I'm about to present to you. But that's okay. That's part of the fun of it. So first off, Tyler Laspina again, owner, lead instructor with Spear Training Group. Not only do we provide training opportunities for individuals, which you should always train, we also do consultation services for professional services and the entertainment industry as well. So this is kind of in line of what I would do for a developer or something if they were creating art styles and stuff. Games are meant to be fun and engaging, you know, interesting. They want to give you a unique gun, and there's a reason they change it up every so often, right? Because if you use the same gun for 6, 7, 8 games in a row, you're kind of going to get a little bored of it. So they want to change up the art styles a little bit. Halo is designed under rule of cool, or rule of gameplay, which is great. It needs to be, and that's what I would hope for. However, from Halo's creation, has spawned a lot of books, a lot of wiki, and a lot of lore stuff. So whenever something wasn't explained in game, it was explained with rule of lore in the books. Someone writes something in a book, they maybe have a little bit of knowledge about how real things work, so they'll kind of skirt their way over here to rule of practical, and then they will write it in the lore. Some people, though, go directly to rule of lore without completely understanding the implications of the decision that they're making. That's okay. I mean, we can't know everything in the world, and there are always specialties and specialists in different industries, and they can help correct that. So what I am going to do, instead of trying to blindly justify changes and alterations and things, I'm going to point all of what we're going to look at rule of practical. Let's see what I'm looking at first here. 44 pounds, that is very heavy. Anti-material and sniper rifle are not necessarily the same thing, not in 2025. Anti-material is specifically designed to disable equipment, vehicles, antennas, things like that. It's not necessarily meant to directly engage an infantry force. Sniper rifles are, anti-material are not. Worth noting here, this was used, it says in service for the Human Covenant War, so that would tell me that this wasn't necessarily employed to fight insurrectionists. It might have been present, or it might have been in design or in manufacture at the time, but it wasn't necessarily employed to fight the insurrectionists directly, if it was even there during that time. This is one of those things where we push a tool into service. Makes sense. We do that in history with the advent of drone warfare and the prevalence that has been coming about. Shotguns have been standard issue on the squad level for Ukrainian and some Israeli forces. If anti-material exists, force it into the role of sniper rifle. And it does. 14.5 by 114. Yeah, that's good. That's bigger than 50 caliber. For context, this is larger than that. So, and 50 caliber is considered substantial and suitable for anti-material rolls. 4-round detachable box magazine. This is going to be something I'm going to pick on. I'll go ahead and do it right now. The height of this magazine, if it's single stack, yes, this can be 4 rounds. Not uncommon. It's actually a very reliable feed system. Some of our modern rifles that were designed to do double stack magazines, and they have the proper bolts for loading from double stack magazines, they have dialed that back a little bit for reliability reasons. So the fact that they would do this on a semi-automatic anti-material rifle, not unheard of. This actually seems pretty realistic for a 4-round detachable. Effective range, 1,500 meters. A lot of modern rifles can reach out to a mile and beyond. Without knowing the exact ballistic coefficient of the specific round that they're stating here, it's hard to say if this would be capable of that. It's worth noting this is a much heavier round than some of those rifles that reach out beyond a mile. None of the engagements you're having in the Halo universe are at that distance, so that's cool. I am going to get really in-depth on one particular thing. I'm real proud of these devs for one of these things that they did. So the big thing to note with sniper rifles is the ammunition. The thing that makes something capable at range and accuracy is ammunition. In fact, one of the best accuracy upgrade you can do for real firearms is usually just buying better ammunition. Target ammo is not necessarily the most accurate ammo. You actually have to get specialized ammo for that, and you will see substantial improvements in that. Whenever I did look at this ammunition, it's worth noting we have multiple ammunition types available in this cartridge. I did read a little bit about it, and that's good. Our Sabo round, which I'm going to butcher this quite a bit, but they basically have this little centerpiece is essentially a chunk of metal. This is what's actually flying towards your enemy. This material on the outer sides of a Sabo is meant to just engage with the rifling inside the barrel of the weapon. Reasons you would do this. This allows you to propel a very small projectile with a lot of propellant. Remember, so in a cartridge, generally speaking, you have a bunch of powder back here. Your cartridge is actually seated right about here. Whenever this ignites, it doesn't all burn up immediately. We'll say this is your barrel here. So while the bullet travels down the barrel, this powder is burning. Once the bullet leaves the barrel, there is no longer pressurized within the barrel. Then you get your excess gas explosions. The heavier the bullet, it takes longer to get down the barrel. If you have an extremely lightweight bullet encased in a Sabo, which is what it's stating in this wiki page, then it goes down the barrel really fast. So this burns, it spits that Sabo out. As soon as it gets out of the barrel, the Sabo fins detach away, and they go whoop, whoop, and then we have this little piece of metal flying towards your target. Sabo is much more common in tank rounds, but what it does allow is an extremely fast velocity, which is actually mirrored in game, because mechanically the rounds seem to be hit scan in game. With the sheer velocity that this caliber would be able to do with a lightweight Sabo round, is kind of reasonable. It certainly leans itself towards the mechanics that were designed in there. However, we have 2 other ammunition types. So one of the good things about large calibers like 14.5, this allows you to have a big old bullet. Now with big bullets, you can fill them with lead, like this outer copper, or this outer shell would be copper. If you fill it with lead, or especially if it's encased in that copper jacket, that would be like an FMJ. If you put a steel penetrator on the front, that would be kind of like an AP ammunition, or if you put a steel penetrator throughout the core of the weapon, that would be another form of AP ammunition. While I'm on that, there is one of the loadings for this sniper rifle that says it is AP ammunition. So AP ammunition would essentially just be some type of reinforced tip on this thing. It's delivering a very hard round. But one of the things we want to take note is the word payload. So because we have a large chambering, 14.5 for this round, we can fill this with other forms of composite materials. So if we have a composite material here, and then separated by another composite material, in theory, once this impacts something, this is all going to smush back into itself and cause an explosion. That would be similar to how HE ammunition works. Some commenters on the first video mentioned that the Magnum shoots high explosive rounds. With pistol cartridges, it's possible, but you kind of get into the realm of what's it really worth. You don't get a huge amount of bang. You can't pack a huge amount of payload in the size of the pistol caliber that is being fired. So there's gives and takes, like we said a minute ago. That's important to remember. But whenever you're talking larger calibers like this, and the role is to be anti-material, delivering an HE round perfectly possible. You might shoot at fuel containers on an enemy base to disable their ability to refuel vehicles and stuff. Or it may be sensitive computer components, and high explosives can severely disrupt that. So point being, this chambering is adequate, this magazine capacity adequate, this range possibly adequate depending on the loading of the specific round, the nomenclatures and everything for the rifle, good, they did a good job here. Overall, their immediate statistics and their immediate loading information is pretty dang spot on. I am going to nitpick on this digital optic. We'll get to that in a minute. Reticle doesn't exactly have the proper gradients that you would actually see in an optic. You'd have mils and dots, or like a Christmas tree reticle. There are different reasons for different things. This doesn't actually really account for the drops and stuff. It's a very specific pattern. On Earth, things are all subject to Earth's gravity, about 9.8 meters per second. The longer it's in flight, the further it's going to drop because it's exposed to 9.8 meters per second. There's a lot of other math that goes into that, ballistic coefficients, air temperature, huge amounts of stuff. Considering we're dealing with a spacefaring group of people, you would be calibrating this type of thing quite often. So I'm assuming there's some hefty computers in here that automate that. Let's take a look at some of the media that was released for this. I want to specifically look at the landfall trailer because, oh, this is so good. God, it pleases me. Look at this manufacturing. So we have the barrel being threaded in. It's worth noting, as that was spinning, you don't see a cutout for a feed ramp. So if you notice, that male threading extended to about here as it was collapsing into the gun. The magazine is right about here. Those don't really line up. That means as this magazine would be feeding, the tip of the bullet would be caught on that threading. I'm not going to get too nitpicky on that because it's okay. It's unrealistic, but that's not something they're going to catch. But there are other ways to mount barrels, especially to this, where you would just cut out a feed ramp into that male threading, and once it is timed correctly, you don't have to worry about it. The round just slips between that feed ramp and the chambers in directly. No problems there. Why the magazine is in during the manufacturing process, don't know, don't care. I don't build these guns, someone else does. There's no round ejecting out of here. It looks like this bolt is just reciprocating. Well, the bolt handle is reciprocating. The bolt itself doesn't appear to be reciprocating. Now, how the bolt is reciprocating with no actual track to fall into, you could say that little gray line is a track, but you can clearly see that that gray line is much smaller than the piece of metal of the bolt handle going back. I do also want to point out how floppy this bipod is. You want your bipod to be pretty rigid. See, look at all that slack. You want your bipod to be rigid. That's not quite ideal. I do want to point out while we're here, the digital scope. Generally speaking, digital scopes are not great. More than likely, right now, you're watching this on your phone. Bring your phone about 3 inches away from your eyeball. So about the width of your hand or so. You bring it close, you notice, well, now you can't really comprehend the information on that phone. This scope would be very much like that. So it's less than ideal. Digital scopes also suffer from pixelation, especially if they're using a digital scope style of zoom, or a digital style of zoom instead of an analog zoom. Basically, instead of zooming in on your image, you're just zooming in on pixels. So now your pixels just get larger in the display. They don't actually show a more refined image. You can see this with modern thermal optics. Considering how far in the future this is, I am going to assume that there is some really interesting lens technology and some really high fidelity cameras. As modern day sits, this would not be ideal. Also, there only seem to be 2 types of zoom on this particular scope. You got a 5 times and a 10 times. We have modern optics now that can go anywhere from like 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10, 2 to 12, and all kinds of other number ranges. So we have wider zoom ranges now. I would imagine this will be the case for the game, but more than likely, rule of gameplay. They just want to make it quick and easy. It's not a simulator. So, cool. Again, I'm assuming this knob on top would be for changing our zoom range. Not improbable. It might be more reasonable to have it elsewhere, but I'm not actually going to change anything about the optic. Again, sniper rifle. We're not trying to do this necessarily on the fly. This thing is 44 pounds. You're not bringing this up to your shoulder really quickly and making a rapid shot. So adjusting your scope on the fly, not super necessary. More than likely, you're set up in a position somewhere deployed by a pod.
3 is hot. Recommend mission abort.
Roger, Recon.
It's your call, Sarge.
So there's no obvious ejector here, or ejection port, rather. The chambering and this bulbousness, this is not unrealistic. That is a large round that is going to explode. Yeah, you kind of want it reinforced a little bit, and it puts your center of balance more rearwards. Having this large block of steel or whatever it is there. Your stock, there's not a huge amount of adjustment here. None of these panels like this or this or this, none of these panels appear to be adjustable. One of the things with shooting long range, you want to be very comfortable behind your gun. The less comfortable you are, that means you're going to have to do a lot of personal adjustment. Personal adjustments out to longer ranges, they really go a long way to detriment your accuracy. Magazine, again, it looks pretty good. This large base plate, it's not necessary. Modern technology does that better. There's no reason to have a huge base plate. Handle on the bottom, considering this thing is 44 pounds, not unreasonable. But we also got a handle on top. How are we training troops to use this? Are they deploying the bipod and they stand up and they grab this handle? Okay. Are they flipping it upside down and grabbing from this handle? Okay. Problem with this handle, it's also mounted up here. So that means whenever you go to pick it up from here, there's going to be a pivoting angle that exists. That's less than ideal whenever carrying a rifle. You will see handles like this on the Shy-Tech Intervention. There are reasons for them, but they're also purposefully balanced to the center of mass of the weapon. Considering we have a large barrel, this is usually the heaviest component on most rifles. You're going to have a large bolt back here somewhere that can handle the recoil and reciprocation of this weapon. And we also have our primary ammo source here. This barrel and its length, not to mention whatever this extra mass is, and I'm not even going to get started on that yet. More than likely, this center of mass is right about here. That means if you were to pick up from this, it's going to tilt backwards. If you were to pick up from here, it's going to tilt a little bit too. So it's just something to worth note. It's not necessarily say it's a bad idea. It's just something to consider whenever you're actually designing these types of things. This large block of material, in theory, you need it to brace onto things, maybe even a counterweight. You'll see heavy sniper rifles or competitions rifles that have things like that quite often. You don't want that on a military service rifle per se, because you have to move in and out of position with this thing. Speed is of the essence. One of the big things with shooting sniper rifles is to relocate after a shot or two. You really don't want to shoot much more than that. So being able to get up and move is very, 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 very important. Maneuverability is often misunderstood until you're actually holding something like this. I promise you, weight is a huge factor. So we're gonna do some editing to change some of this up. Floppy bipod, for the amount of weight that it's holding, I can only assume this is some space magic materials, like there's a comment that said titanium A. Sure, okay, whatever, maybe it is. I'm gonna reinforce it anyway, I don't care. This here, I have no clue what this is. Again, could be a counterweight system, might not be. I don't know. I can't find any explanation on it. It says it somewhere. Leave a comment down below if you know. Muzzle brake, very important. They did good on this, other than having a front sight. There's no rear sight to mount up with this. So we're going to eliminate that. Again, it's extra bulk, it's extra snag, it's extra weight. That doesn't really need to be there. And I know it's probably just an animation thing, but these ports should be see-through. We're gonna make some adjustments there as well.
Here we go, drum roll.
Boom. All right. Back to the original beauty. Back to my blasphemy. Beauty, blasphemy. Beauty, blasphemy. All right. We're going to go in reverse here. Remove the front sight. I did include the transparency of the ports here. Let me zoom in here a little bit. I did add a little bit of darkening here, because how this type of port mechanism actually works is they're slightly swept backwards. So when the bullet comes out of the barrel, the gases expand, which causes this to force, it pulls the gun forward whenever shooting to do this. On lower caliber guns, compensator ports are usually just perpendicular to the exiting round. Again, this captures the gases, pulling it forward slightly. But on a caliber as substantial as this, you kind of want to swept back. The Barrett M82 and M107 do this as well, because again, they're huge calibers. You kind of want that extra meat and potatoes. On sniper rifles and stuff, compensators are ideal. Whenever you're shooting out to further ranges, you need to be able to have your recoil and come back down on your target. You want to be able to see the impacts of your rounds, especially out to further ranges. That way you can adjust on the fly. And being that this is a semi-automatic platform, you have the capability to immediately respond, so you want to see that. So putting a suppressor on here or a flash hider, it would disable substantially your ability to recover from recoil. Muzzle devices are one of the best ways to manage recoil, other than, well, technique. But muzzle devices are one of the things that you can just buy off the shelf that help recoil quite a bit. Times and places for all muzzle devices, this is the correct muzzle device for here. I did not shorten the barrel. Again, anti-material. The purpose of this is to deliver power. We want longer barrels so the bullet reaches larger velocities to impact harder. I also beefed up this carry handle up front here a little bit. In the event you just need to pull it into place a little bit, it's there. I didn't see a huge reason to remove it, so I didn't. I reduced that big jutting pillar out of the front. I included only enough material to house the bipod and this handle. Notice that it is separated from the barrel. You actually see it in some of the other sniper rifle variants as well, where this handle or handguard actually touches the barrel. You do not want that on a marksman or accurized rifle. Reason being, there's things called barrel harmonics. This is a barrel. As the bullet travels down the barrel, your barrel starts to whip just a little bit. Now, if this bullet gets to a certain point where there's another piece of metal attached to it, this will throw off your barrel harmonics in that one place. This will cause your bullet to have slightly implied changes in energy and distribution of spin whenever it actually leaves the barrel. On accurized weapon systems, you do not want anything contacting the barrel. Whichever sniper rifle variant it is that has some extrusion out here touching, that's bad juju. You don't want that. It's going to mess you up. I did include a little bit of a handguard, even though this thing isn't really, especially at this weight, isn't intended for shoulder fire, as we always see in game. That's at least something to hold on to, something more comfortable, and something that's not going to interfere with the barrel. I did also include a slight shelf here, so you can press this up against barricades like windows or small, conveniently placed road barriers in the middle of streets. whatever the case, having a slight ledge there really helps. Doesn't exist over here, for granted. They do have this carry handle, but that is actually pretty far away from about the center of balance. That means you as the shooter are going to have to do a lot of work. You see this in modern PRS shooting. They will usually try to brace up a sandbag pretty close up to the magazine well, or again, the center of balance, wherever that might be. Magazine, reduce that base plate. Again, not necessary. It's just extra bulk in your kit whenever it's sitting in a pocket or something. So we've reduced some of that. Very minor change here. I can actually see in some of the images that there appears to be a lens cover, like this one here. That's great. That's good forward thinking. You would want that. So I added a slight little piece that can just pop that kill flash down. You don't always want to kill flash in place because the kill flash disrupts the amount of light that can come into your lenses. As an example, if I have all of this light coming in, the kill flash is going to change some of that to where it's slightly less. That means you're going to get a slightly less refined image coming through your optic. So if you're especially shooting out further ranges, you'd probably drop this kill flash down. That way you get a slightly more clear image. Yeah, it is going to come in contact with the barrel. One thing you can actually do is just pivot a lot of kill flashes upwards so they pop up or back. The thing is, this close to the bore, it's not going to mess with the barrel harmonics. Because again, remember, this round is loading into the chamber. And it is actually sitting right in here. And the bullet is out here. So all the explosion and gas expansion happens out this way. A small piece of plastic contacting the chamber there, or the barrel there, is not really going to affect anything. So, big one, ejection port. This is a very small ejection port, but as the empty round is getting extracted, the bolt comes rearwards. We don't know exactly how far back it comes. It doesn't properly represent in the game because the bolt handle on the other side of the gun is about here and only reciprocates here. This is the entire case length of the weapon. It doesn't quite add up great, so we don't know how far it comes back. This ejection port should be about right here, but I'm not going to go through and remodel it right now. But just know that this would kind of be more of a concealed ejection port, similar to the Desert Tech MDR. If you can see this here, it actually the empty round actually just pops out of this little chute here. It doesn't come flying out of this whole opening. It's just this little opening. So this will be a similar variation to that. But again, it should be more forward. I did not render that in the final image that I'm showing you here. Shame on me. Anywho, there's no magazine release as far as I can tell. So I created just a small magazine release right here. Sure, it could be a push button, but one of the cool things about lever magazine releases like this is they work for left-handed and right-handed shooters. So yeah, I can have one mechanical device that releases the magazine, or I can have a button on here that reduces the ability of 10% of the population. Not that we care about lefties too much, but you know, let's try to be inclusive. Also, generally on direct combat weapons, you don't want this type of magazine release. You still see them, they're quite common, but you don't want it because this is just a little extra hook that gets hooked on things and can release your magazine inadvertently. We actually see that sometimes in training environments. So if this were a direct frontline combat role, you definitely want a push button magazine release. Sniper rifle that's sitting in place for the most part, now that'll do fine. Trigger wise, very flat back swept trigger, not really ideal. And we also have a slightly canted back grip. We did alter the grip a little bit. It's also worth noting in the original design they have weird finger grooves. You have more fingers than just this down there, so we changed that up just a little bit. Did weird on the shadows here. It looks good when you're zoomed out, but not so much when you're zoomed in. Anyway, I also added a slight hook on the bottom. Why? Because this is where your finger's actually going to rest. Falling into that hook allows for a direct pull back. This, you could argue, oh, well, it's flat. Well, it's going to pull straight back. Well, your finger's going to want to slide off where there's less friction, which will be down in the trigger guard. Trigger guard is also slightly opened up for the larger fingers that are out there. Reason we straighten this up, if you have a swept back trigger like this, your thumb is going over that way, your finger's over here. This cant in your wrist creates a weird change for the tendon in your index finger, which that tendon alters more things when it's canted, as opposed to if we can get really squared up with this grip here. Let me redraw that. Your finger would be directly in line here. Your thumb can either wrap around or rest on this side of the weapon, and then all of your other fingers are here. This is much more in line with your wrist and forearm. That means that tendon in your index finger is going to be altered by less as it tightens, as it contracts. So it's an accuracy thing. So we just slightly straightened it up there. Very hard metal backplate. Maybe this is rubber, maybe not. Can't tell. But this is not a lot of adjustment, as we mentioned before. This is a very solid chunk of metal too. It doesn't appear to need to be that way, so we reduced some of the bulk. First off, we got cheek riser adjustment, so we can raise and lower the cheek riser components. We also added another wheel here to adjust this whole rear plate. This will change our rubber butt pad and the positioning of our rear monopod, but this whole thing can just move in and out away from the weapon to adjust for individual shooters. All shooters are slightly different. This is a slightly back swept rubber butt pad, just to help kind of rest on the shoulder whenever you're proned out or in a position for long enough. These monopods are very important for if you're in position for several hours and you need to get a little comfortable. Deploy a monopod. You can change these heights by twisting them left and right, or counterclockwise and clockwise, and it'll get different heights. So that is my overall edit of the sniper rifle. Overall, this is actually the most accurate and realistic gun I've seen thus far. Very minor changes overall, other than this one glaring ejection port issue. It's worth noting there is enough room in this system for a reciprocating bolt. Again, we're looking about like that, so we would want it to even out. And even then, that right there is about another bolt length, but because we have all this extra space for spring compression, this could be what we call constant recoil. There are not many guns that use this technology. Constant recoil means the bolt actually never slams to the back of the gun. It slows down before it hits the back of the gun and then moves back forward. This reduces recoil dramatically, but it requires a whole lot of additional material behind the bolt. The only gun I can think of off the top of my head that does it, I think, is the U100. It's a machine gun. One of the Far Crys and one of the Ghost Recons uses it. But yeah, it has a constant recoil system. The bolt never slams to the back of the receiver, and it creates a really smooth cyclic rate. So that could be here, but as the animations in game show, doesn't look super smooth. So that's all I've got really on the sniper rifle. Overall, pretty good design, not bad. All I would change, well, in my own rendition, is moving this ejection port a little more forward. It would actually be right about here. And that would be about it.
That was a lot of fun deep diving into the Halo sniper rifle and seeing what Instructor Lespina would change to make it more practical. I like how the weapon has maintained much of its design. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can check out my other videos that I made with Instructor Lespina. We've covered the assault rifle, the Magnum, shotgun, and SMG so far. You could also check out the videos I've made on my own. Thank you very much for watching, and consider subscribing.